we have faith that by listening to that voice in ourselves, that way of knowing, that we will guide ourselves through life. And that's what was shattered for me at the time. So going back to emotional intelligence, some people will guide themselves through life through their thinking. This is a Carl Jung contribution. He said there are 4 ways of knowing. Some people are thinking people. They make decisions by thinking. Logic, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's good. That's bad. That makes sense. That adds up. It's thinking. It's most logical. Pluses and minuses. Okay. Those are thinking types. Other people are feeling types. Now, the generalization is that men are thinking types and women are feeling types. Feeling types make decisions based on how they feel. I like that. I don't like that. That feels like the right way to go. That doesn't feel like the right way to go. I'm attracted. I'm not attracted. It's all feeling function. It's another way of knowing. It's another way of knowing. And your feeling function, now according to Jung, we all have these capacities. Some are more developed than others. And growing up, maturing as an adult, involves developing what he called the inferior function. So in my case, well, I'll give you the 2 other ways of knowing. One is sensation. There are some people that go through the world by what they see and what they feel and what they touch. These are the people that can fix anything. If they can put their hands on it, they can take it apart and put it back together again. These are crafts people, women that, and men that do these amazing things with their hands. It's the sensation types. That's, if you can touch it and taste it and feel it and see it, you can trust it. And then that's the 3rd way of knowing. The 4th way is intuition, which in some ways is the most fascinating to me. Because intuition is just a way of knowing stuff without it. It's not being a thought, a feeling, or a sensation. It's something else. It's something else. There's some other way of knowing that has nothing to do with those other things. So that was Jung's model, and I use it because I think it has a lot to offer. There's a very popular test called the Myers-Briggs test. It's a psychological test. It used to be given very, very frequently in major corporations for executives to figure out what types of thinker they are, because it can show you your strengths and it can show you your weaknesses, and if you learn the best ways that you learn, then you can learn that way. So, going back to deciding about things like gun laws and whether you want your kid to play football or not, how do you decide? Do you want to decide based on thinking, or do you want to decide based on feeling? You could use sensation too, I guess, which is what you know about what happens. If you've had personal experience, then you would know what it was like if you played football, and then you could base it on your knowing. So, I think a lot of times people make decisions based on emotion that they'd be better served using their thinking, and the opposite is true. That people oftentimes are making decisions based on their thinking, they ought to be dealing with their emotions, because that's the one that most represents them. Take a pause for a moment. Do we have any questions this week that people sent in, or anybody there?
Yeah. No, I don't have anything so far yet, Doc.
Okay. Well, this could be a good time to slip into story time. I've told this story before, but it seems kind of appropriate for what I'm talking about. So this is the story of Odysseus going past the island of the Sirens. Odysseus was a famous warrior, king, warrior, conqueror. And he had many, many journeys. And in this particular episode, he has to somehow get past the sirens, who are these very powerful female warriors who would seduce men over to the island and with their music. And then, since they were such powerful warriors, they would kill them, and it says in the original Odyssey, and they would pick their bones clean. Not a very pretty picture. So Odysseus has to figure out, how am I going to get past these women, these sirens? Their music is so seductive, nobody can resist. Nobody can resist the sound of the sirens. It's the calling. So what he decides to do is, he has himself tied to the mast of his ship, so he can't get out. And then he has all of his oarsmen put earplugs on. Their ears are covered, so that they are going to row past the island, but they don't get to hear the music, so they stay on course. And so he does exactly what he planned to do. He listens to the sound of the music. He hears the sound of the music, and he makes it past them, and he doesn't crack up on the rocks. So the reason I like that story so much is, what does it mean to crack up on the rocks? What does it mean? What is the sound of the music that is so seductive? Is simply, you can do it right now. Just observe your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. That's it. And let your tongue touch the roof of your mouth. Now, by remembering that, you're centering yourself because you're focusing your consciousness on your breath. Again, you can do it. When I teach it, like I'm teaching a class to a group of continuation high school students. As a matter of fact, I'm teaching it to the whole school. It's a grand experiment. The question is, can emotional intelligence be taught as curriculum? And as far as I can see, the best place to start is in the worst place in our society. I don't know that these kids know that, and I don't identify that for them. But in some ways, these are the kids that grow up. Riddled poverty. Some of them go to school without food in the morning, or having not eaten dinner last night. Some of them talk regularly, regular conversations about people that they know that have been killed. Regular conversations. And so I did a pilot project. You can see a short video called Remedy4Rage, the number 4.com, with a group of kids on probation. We did that, I think, 3 years ago. And now we're doing it with the whole school. And the question is, can we teach these kids how to deal with their emotional reactivity? So some small percentage of them will learn how to deal with their aggression in particular. As I say to them, you have plenty to be angry about. You can't help feeling angry. That's part of the building blocks of emotional intelligence. you learn that emotion is produced by the emotional limbic brain, the way heartbeats are produced by your reptilian brain. You can't help what you feel. And you are responsible for how to express it. And since it's pressure, just the way your heartbeat is pressure, it must be, the emotion demands to be released one way or the other. So either you're going to figure out how to do it consciously, without breaking the rules, which I define, or it will do you. So the anger comes up as pure emotion, and people listen to it as if it's their higher voice of consciousness, of spirit. When you're angry, you feel powerful and entitled. You can get loud, pushy, very sincere. The problem is, you've been cracked up on the rocks. Your emotions just swept you away. What happened was your primitive emotion, your primitive brain, the limbic brain, primitive, preceded the neocortex, the thinking brain, which is allowing you to understand something that I'm saying right now. It's your thinking brain. Your thinking brain can remember what you had for lunch, and you know what you're going to do after this. Mathematics, etc. Your emotional brain produces emotion. You can't help it. And that pressure is going to go somewhere. Or, I mean, it's got to go somewhere. If you don't express it in one way, you'll end up with high blood pressure, right? You don't know how to deal with the pressure in your circulatory system. You'll have high blood pressure, and then something will blow up there. If it's in your brain, it's a stroke. Otherwise, it's a heart attack. Same thing emotionally. When you start to understand emotions, these are the building blocks that I'm giving these kids. And I'm teaching them a basic breathing exercise and introducing it so now I just invited the other teachers to start to use it in their classroom. So whenever a kid starts to get unruly or two kids are being disrespectful, you ring a little bell and you say, hey, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath. Now get control and watch what you're feeling. That's where the emotional intelligence gets taught as curriculum. It's an opportunity to learn different ways to deal with emotion. Now the problem is, it's rare for kids to be raised in that atmosphere. So we pass on whatever we don't figure out for ourselves, really, we leave for our kids to figure out. So they have to figure it out. It's rare for a child to be born into a home where feelings are acknowledged. When you're pissed off, it's like, okay, you're pissed off. You can express being pissed off. That's okay. There's just certain ways you can't do it that are unacceptable. You can't hurt yourself. You can't hurt somebody else. You can't destroy something of value. And you can't hurt somebody's feelings. So you can be pissed off, but you got to figure out how else to do it. Now imagine if this was taught in kindergarten and again in first grade. I've taught this in high-level graduate school, dental school. And it would start out with some of these students who are totally brilliant, USC Dental School, one of the finest, if not the finest in the country. And after doing this class with me, it was like, whoa, Doc, I am pissed off. I see how it was affecting relationships with their clients. It can be very, very subtle inside, but you see, it's gonna go somewhere. It's gonna go somewhere. It'll either be internalized, so, you know, the highest cause I think of death in lawyers is a heart attack at age 55, something like that. The pressure of being a lawyer. It's going to go somewhere. So, understanding that, when you understand it, now you can do something about it. You can discharge it and release it. But, you see, the first challenge is tying yourself to Odysseus' mast. Is getting connected to a core self. This is what all of the mindfulness has become a very popular word out there. Much more popular than meditation. I think mindfulness is about meditation without identifying anything that looks spiritual. There's no affiliation with Buddhism or Hinduism or Judaism or Catholicism or Protestantism. There's no, it's just mindfulness. When historically, for sure in Buddhism, meditation is a spiritual practice. In mysticism, meditation is a spiritual practice. But what's happening is now mindfulness is a phrase that's becoming much more